Hello, and welcome to another episode of the QB Talks. It is August 2024, and good afternoon, and thank you for attending. It's the ProAdvisor Roundtable where Murph will be leading a discussion with some of our award winners and talking about kind of what got them into the positions they're in, and then touching on how what 2025, what you can do preparing for 2025. And we do still have people rolling into the room here. So we've got a couple of things on the front end that we'll cover while people get into the room. And that is CPE. CPE, this is a CPE qualified webinar. And just like all the webinars that you attend to get your CPE, you have to be here for 50 minutes, 50 minutes, and you have to answer at least three of the poll questions. I think we have five total. We do have a sponsor for today. And actually, before I do that, we do have after this shuts down, there will be a survey that'll pop up on your screen. Three questions. We just ask you to complete those surveys if you have an extra minute in your day to do that. And that'll help us, again, continue to improve what we do here with QB Talks and really all of our webinars. We do have a sponsor today. We have that is Use. They will be providing us with a demo. Our our demoer, if that's a word, our demoer person who will be doing the demo is not here yet, so we may have to take a little intermission sometime in the middle of the conversation, and then have to pick back where we left off. So, Murph, I'm going to go ahead and close this, turn this over to you, and then we'll just keep an eye on participants. I'll let you know when he does show up, and then we'll see when we can cut in. We will be running poll questions from the back end, so I will be in the dark here. Murph, it is all yours. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Well, we're glad that everybody is with us today, and we're especially glad that we have some of our 2024 ProAdvisor Award recipients. You know, I tend to use that word. I try to stay away from award winners because this is not a winner situation. It's a recipient situation because it recognizes the hard work and accomplishments. And we always want to emphasize that these awards are objectively based. The only subjectivity to it is the actual vote component. And Gary has introduced himself, and I think everybody knows who I am. I've been writing for Insightful Accountant now since the very beginning, but it's also been my responsibility to develop the ProAdvisor Awards process and to administer that. And so I always try to make sure that if you have an issue as you're going through the process, reach out and contact me, and you'll always find my email on the introduction page of the application forms. And Gary mentioned our sponsor for today, and so hopefully they'll chime in a few minutes and do their thing. But we also need to give thanks to our award sponsors for both 2024 and 2025. It's currently the same list. And so all these people are the companies and individuals who make our awards possible. Without them, we wouldn't have the ProAdvisor Awards. So we have some learning objectives, and the first is to identify common traits among award recipients that have earned them recognition, determine where you best fit in the award categories based on your practice and your strengths as a ProAdvisor, and list key areas of your practice that you can enhance to improve your standings within areas measured as a part of the awards process. And as I said, with us today, we have Caleb Jenkins. He's our ProAdvisor of the Year for 2024. And I mentioned that he does represent the next generation of QuickBooks ProAdvisor. truly, it is his deep product knowledge and his commitment to giving back. And you can just look at LinkedIn every day and see how much he gives back. But he's noted as being a contributor and also being an instructor and providing a great deal of information that you wouldn't think that a young man his age actually even has. It's been just a short time since Caleb became a ProAdvisor when he was 16 years of age. And not long after that, he won our up and coming ProAdvisor Award. And it's amazing that he has managed to work each and every year, improving his scores. And finally, this year, he made it to the cream of the crop. I mean, he is one of the most worthy individuals that we've ever seen in terms of performance. And I'll just mention this, the point difference. You're not going to believe this, folks. The point difference between Caleb and the next runner up for ProAdvisor of the Year was more than 10,000 points. And we have categories where the difference between first place and second place is sometimes as little as a half a point. And so to have a 10,000 point difference in your overall score, that is tremendous. That's the highest difference we've ever had. Now, we also have with us today Nancy McClelland, and she's the top client accounting services and sometimes we put a /BPO ProAdvisor. She's known as the Dancing Accountant, and she's headquartered in Logan Square, a Chicago neighborhood. And she has a team approach in which she's got individuals working all across the United States. So about probably I'd say 80% of the time, she's not at home in Chicago like she is today, but rather she's sitting somewhere. It could be on a beach or atop a mountain or in a little cafe, maybe in Paris, and she just goes global dancing all over, navigating the accounting around the world. And we also have with us, he just chimed in, Hayden Turner. Hayden is kind of like me, one of the old farts, excuse my language, one of the old people that's been around forever since QuickBooks began. Hayden's firm is Wing Disc Technology, and I'll ask him to tell you why that is. He calls it that. But anyway, he's been the recipient also of a Desktop Integrations Award. And so he's been striving from the very beginning to ensure that he was in the top 100. We will also have here, in just a little bit, Sandy Petty, and she will chime in from her office in Atlanta. She had a client that just insisted that she take some of her time. And Sandy is the up and coming ProAdvisor for 2024. And I'll talk a little about that award being how it's different from the others in just a minute. Gary has showed up, and so the other Gary that we were waiting on. And Gary, we're going to let you go ahead and do your presentation. Okay. And you're muted, so there you go.
Absolutely.
And you can just select share and share your screen.
All right. Let's see here. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, apologies for being late. Thank you all for allowing me this short amount of time to show what Use is about. I'm excited to kind of show you guys why QuickBooks customers typically go with us. I am the QuickBooks expert at Use. So all of the clients that I work with are QuickBooks only. So just show you guys a couple of things. It's going to be really high level here. Just show you a couple of things that on reasons why, some of the issues that I see when I'm talking to different clients. One is the manual data processing. So we're going to go over that. Another thing that clients typically worry about is ease of use, time savings, and security and errors. Okay, so I'm going to highlight all that in this short amount of time. So as we get started here, you guys can see that here we have I'm in my environment here, and we have a couple of different workspaces. The only two I'm going to focus on is the capture and the my task, okay? Capture, this is where we capture the different invoices. There's 3 ways that you can capture invoices. One would be through email capture. So I know that, nowadays most vendors, they send in invoices through email. We would have it captured through here. We'd create an auto forwarding rule, or you can manually forward it to this email. It would come into our system, and our smart data extraction would pick up those the information that it needs and send it where it needs to get to as far as the workflow, however the workflow is set up. Okay. The other way we capture is just selecting a file and dragging and dropping different documents in here. And the third way I would say would be our mobile app. And you can simply just take a picture of the image that you need, and it will come directly into our system and go through our workflows, however they're set up for you guys. Okay. Moving on to my task. So here's where you'll spend about 95% of your time. Why? Because you have a to-do list, and then you would have a task. Okay. This is the dashboard that pretty much every user is going to have. They're going to have a to-do list, and they'll have a task. If you have a client that needs to create purchase requests through our software, you can do it through here if you need to, but also we can connect with external softwares that bring invoices in to get that two-way match. If you process it through us, then you can get that goods receipt through a match that you need as well. I've already created a PO and had it uploaded into the system, and then I've already uploaded an invoice to have that PO match. As you can see in my to-do list, I have a task for reviewing this PO match, and I'm simply just going to click here. And we'll notice that the image is here, everything on the image. We're actually picking up every single bit of information. As you see, I'm highlighting through it. And these are the properties here that I'm telling my system, my AI, I'm like, hey, this is what I need you to find. Find it for me. I need you to find the document date, which is next to invoice date, the document number. It went through and found that, and it matched it to that PO that I already created. So in this case, if this came in the review stage for someone, they would simply just need to review this and submit it, because it's all good to go. So I at least wanted to show you guys that for your customers, your clients that do have that do work with POs. And as you can see, it's going to Amelia Approver. So I would just confirm that. Another thing, there are some documents, there's some other documents that came in the review stage. Before I go through these, I want to bounce over to our workflow so I can show you what's possible and show you what we have in place. And then I'll come back here and show you why these are in the review stage. Okay. Again, this is really high level. So if there's any questions that you all may have, I'll make sure that my contact information is available, but just want to show you what's possible here. So in our workflows here, we have 3 stages. Okay. We have our review stage, our approve stage, and our payment stage. When we're talking about workflows here, this can be whatever your client, whatever you guys need it to be. Okay. We're extremely customizable. We have best practices, of course, but also we have a system, a software to where we can kind of conform to where you're at and get you to where you need to be. And I think that's where a lot of companies that I work with, they're kind of hesitant sometimes because they feel like they have to change everything immediately. And that's just not the case. Now, explaining what we have in the review stage. In the review stage, before this stage, before AI, you would typically typically spend time entering these entering these invoices manually and uploading them manually into QuickBooks. We take care of a lot of that because of our capture feature. So now documents that end up in the review stage are documents that actually need to be reviewed. It's not just a catch-all for everything. We do have some criteria that we put in place for this demo. And this one simply says, this is our no touch auto review. This one is just saying that if they're when the invoice comes through, if it's from any of these 10 selected vendors and the amount is lower than $550 and the data is complete, it will completely skip the review stage and go directly to the approve. So I see my customers putting utility bills here because it's from the same vendor, same price, and it needs to get paid that month. And our approve stage, again, this is just to show you what's possible. This criteria here is just showing you that, hey, if there's the word oxygen ends up anywhere on the invoice, it will be sent to Aaron for approval. So this is just a word. If it's anywhere at all on the document, it will send right over to Aaron. And this is just to show you the power of our software. This is pretty standard. If there's an invoice that comes through over $2,000, it will skip the remaining approvals and it will go directly to a parallel approval in this case. So parallel approval means it'll send to 2, 3, or whoever, how many people. It can send to one person based on many different criteria that you would put in here. So it's really up to what you would like to do. And then again, our no touch. Out of these selected vendors, if it's lower than $50, it will completely skip the approval stage and go directly to payments. Now, our payment feature is optional. What we can do there is we can help automate the ACH, physical checks, and we do offer a virtual credit card. The cool thing about our payments is that we can help with this automation without having any pre-funded accounts. I do want to point this out. Say after the final approval happens, you click approve. This is an indicator that lets you know that we're exporting to QuickBooks Online, and the image will show there as well. And again, our payment, you would click pay. This lets us know to pay on your behalf, how it's coded, pull from the right account, etc. And this is an indicator, this is where we send the payment remittance information to the vendor and back to the accounting software. All right. Moving back to my task, because I want to show you guys why some of these documents ended up in the review stage. So here, I would just click on here. So we put this one in the review stage because you see here that there's a discrepancy. It's supposed to be at $2,448, but it ended up being at 0. What we're actually doing here is showing you guys that our software can memorize these GL lines. So pretty much what happened here is the first time this invoice came through, you came and you added these manually. And then when you click submit, you wanted us to memorize it. Now, how do we get these numbers in? Well, we could just type it, or we could just click in there once, click the actual image, and bring that information in really quick. You can even put in a formula if you would like to divide it all equally. Great. Moving on to the next one. Let's see. This one's in the review stage because there's a duplicate document. Pretty simple. So we caught that. It'll actually put the duplicate here, and we could pull it up, confirm that it's a duplicate. And since we know it is, we're going to delete, put the reason, and click yes.
So Gary, let me ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
First of all, do you all have a online demo of this and or an online trial?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
We don't have an online trial, but we do have a free trial.
Okay.
We do have a demo, and actually we have a live demo that's coming up on September 19th, specific to you guys. That'll be, I believe, will be beneficial, and I can send over the link to you.
Yeah, and I think the slide I showed earlier mentioned that.
Okay.
And the other thing is, does this only work with QuickBooks Online, or do you integrate with other accounting software?
That's a great question. We integrate with over 250 plus. I specifically work with QuickBooks, but we have other reps like me that focus on other ERPs. So
Okay.
the Sages, the NetSuites. Me,
All right.
I'm on QuickBooks. That's my life.
Okay.
Any other questions on that?
No, we want to thank you for being here today and presenting this. And I think
Thank
we've
you.
got the additional information that we'll share about the upcoming webinar, joint webinar. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So I just dropped that into the chat. That link is in the chat, and we'll also have it in the follow-up. And then we do have just a really quick poll question around use. If I can get that open here. Yeah, it's basically more of an AP question of who you work with, if anyone. Again, from CPE perspective, you do need three of, again, I think we have five total. So we'll leave this open for about 10 more seconds. So if you need the CPE, go ahead and check this one off. All right, we'll get it closed down in about 5 more seconds. So if you'd like to participate, please do. 3, 2, and I see people putting, okay, because it wasn't on there. All right, 3, 2, and 1. Thank you much. It's all you, Murph.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen again. And folks, we made our introductions a little earlier, but we're going to now kind of start with Caleb. And Caleb, I've got a couple of questions here. You don't have to handle these strictly, but I think you'll get the gist of what I'm trying to achieve. Maybe the objectives that I listed also help. But just kind of tell me, what do you think that is unique about you? And it may not be unique, and that's what I'm hoping to find out, is that some of the things, the qualities, the traits that you have are common throughout the ProAdvisor community. But what personal and professional traits do you think have propelled you all the way to the top of the ProAdvisor Awards?
Well, for starters, thanks for having me on here. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone. And then secondly, I don't know exactly how I scored 10,000 more than great folks like Nancy and everyone else that's here. But so I'm not exactly sure how that happened. But the aspects
And let me
of
just mention here that the total number of points last year in the 2024 application was 187,310. That's how many total points if you answered every single question to the max. So a 10,000 variation is pretty significant. Yeah.
So the personal professional traits, I would say a little bit of it maybe just goes to my story a little bit. So I got started young in the space. My dad has an accounting firm that I literally and practically grew up in. So the first 10 years of my life, the my dad's office was at our home location, two separate office buildings behind our house. But I would go out when I was little and help with shredding and different things. And I loved working on computers and playing games and doing different things like Microsoft Flight Simulator and different other things that was fun to play with. And through that, I got started messing around with QuickBooks. My mom struggled a little bit with doing some of her bank recs and different things. And so because I enjoyed working on the computer, well, she turned to me and asked me to help her with different things. So then I'm started using QuickBooks myself to track my own finances and just my personal finances. My dad, I did some baking of cookies for my dad during tax season, and he's like, "Hey, for me to pay you, I need an invoice." So I started a class for my cookie business and invoiced my dad. So I learned a little bit through that. So I think part of it is I got started young, and part of that was using, as I was young, the brain capacity of information is more moldable than when you get older. And I'm learning that now as I'm studying for some other exams currently, is it's a little bit harder than it was 10 years ago to study for things. But so I think that's one aspect. The second, though, is a desire to continue learning. So as you never feel like you've learned it. So I spend a lot of time on webinars and researching apps, learning who apps are. So like this Gary's presentation on Use, I had seen the name before, but I hadn't ever actually dug into their app. But I love looking at new apps and seeing how they work, testing it with a client, and seeing how it works, deciding whether or not it fits into our tech stack. And so I would say that's a key thing, is education and trial and error kind of on messing with the applications that exist. There's so much to learn through the ecosystem of apps and the relationships that you build there. I'd say the third thing maybe, and maybe this is first, but is a desire to just build relationships with folks. So relationships in with other peers in the accounting profession. Another thing would be relationships with the apps that exist. So when I go to conferences, I love to visit every single exhibitor on the exhibit floor and try to understand what they do. Some of them I already work with, some of them I've looked at in the past. So it's about understanding what they've developed since the last time I talked to that app. And that can get a little bit complex. Like this past year at Scaling New Heights, there was a ton of apps on the exhibit floor. So it was hard to get to everyone. I'm not sure I got to every single one this year, probably the first time I haven't. But I try to develop relationship with each of them. And maybe it's something I don't actually end up using their application, but maybe it's something that I can refer another ProAdvisor to that's looking for help in a certain area. That lends itself to maybe the one of the later categories, which is, I feel like anyone that has experienced any level of success, and some of success is based on this as well, is the aspect of giving forward to others. And so as you are working with individuals in the space or outside this profession, there's a way I mean, I've been blessed immensely by folks like Murph. I'd say most of what I learned through QuickBooks Desktop era and the early stages of QuickBooks Online is attributable to what you taught me, Murph. And then other folks like Joe Woodard has been an amazing influence in my life, and many others. So I feel like I have a responsibility to give forward to others as they look to individuals for guidance on things like apps to select or decisions or structure of their business or how they do their pricing. So lots of different things that I feel like go into that and composite. And then part of the, back to one of the earlier things I said on never stopping to learn is get certified in apps. So the certification process is, you might think I know this, I don't need it. Get certified anyways. And because you'll learn tremendous things in that. And there's an aspect of, once you have passed a certification, there's a mental aspect that I now know it because I have a certification that says I do. There's just a mental confirmation bias maybe that tells you that you now know this, and you now are more confident in helping others after you get certified. And then get certified in as many applications and as possible, and take their course of materials for education and learning and et cetera. So I think that's I don't know, maybe to kick it off and start it. Maybe that's too much to start.
Well, I think you've hit on something, and it just kind of fits in with a point I was going to raise a little later, but I'm just going to throw it out now. You know, I threw out a number a while ago, 187,000 points. And folks, what Caleb's talking about in terms of apps, more than 40% of the total number of possible points comes from what we call the ecosystem section. And so when I see people who are really good ProAdvisors, but they simply choose not to participate in that section, they say, oh, I'm not going to spend the time to fill out about all those apps, a lot of which I don't use. It's not the ones you don't use, it's the ones you do use. It's the ones you recommend. It's the ones that you actively link people up with. It's the ones that you, as Caleb said, get certified in. That's where you earn points, and more points. And if you're ignoring that, you're throwing away the possibility of a lot of points. I'm going to ask Nancy kind of these same questions, and then we'll kind of come back around if we need to, and then I'll get to you, Hayden, I promise.
Well, I'm really glad you came to me next, because I actually had something that I wanted to piggyback on with what you were just saying, Murph, about how 40% of those points come from the ecosystem section. I guess this really relates very deeply to what Caleb was saying as well, as far as continuing education is concerned. I believe very strongly in continuing education for its own sake, not for the award. However, what I will say, and actually before I get to my main point, I want to tell you, I love continuing education so much. I mean, it's just one of my favorite things. My husband teases me that I got into speaking to find a way to get paid to attend conferences and webinars, considering how much time I spend on education and networking, that I needed to find some way to spend more time doing that without it being non-monetized. So I just love learning. It contributes to my own enjoyment of my job, and of course to the quality of services that my team and I provide our clients. When I learn something that I'm excited about, I take it back to the team and I'm like, hey guys, we got to learn how to do this. It's so exciting. There's this new feature or whatever. And I think of being aware how much there is that's out there to learn. It was said really well to me recently by a member of my Ask a CPA subscription, Jody. She said when she first learned bookkeeping, she knew this much, she learned this much. And she thought that there was probably this much to learn. And this is how much of it she learned. So maybe, this would be 100%. And she had learned 85% of it. And the more that she learned, the more that she realized was the world of what she didn't know kept growing, and it kept growing faster than what she was learning herself. So maybe now she realizes she only knows 20% of what there is to know out there. And I've been doing this. I've been running my own firm for 23 years. We just had our anniversary, our 23rd anniversary, a month ago. And I've been in accounting even longer than that. I won't date myself too much more. But in that time, I have learned the same thing, that the more that I learn, the more I realize there is to learn. And so continuing education for its own sake, to fill in those gaps, the app certification, like Caleb was saying, to build the confidence that you have filled in those gaps and that there's not something out there in that particular app that, you should have known and didn't. Those kinds of things just build that confidence. But I believe very strongly in continuing education for its own sake. What's different with the award, and this is the main point I want to make here for any of you who are who are eager to get into top 100, or you're already top 100 and you're eager to get in top 10, the difference for me was in tracking it, actually making notes about the webinars that I was taking, being more careful about which buckets my CPE, I'm a CPA, so we have to do a lot of CPE credits, but I wasn't tracking which buckets those landed in. And I wasn't tracking the webinars that I wasn't getting credit for. I wasn't tracking my certifications. I was just doing those things because I loved doing them. And I think that a really great tip that I could offer is, start writing those things down. I know there are a ton of people that are on this call that I see in chat at every single one of those webinars. And you may or may not be jotting down somewhere that you did it. And so when it comes time to apply for top 100, and you're, wanting to get as many points as possible, you're like, oh yeah, I guess I probably did a few webinars, where in fact, you might be on them on a much more regular basis than you're giving yourself credit for. So I want to make sure I give you that pro tip. I also wanted to add
something. I'll mention something about what you're saying, keeping track. I had someone ask me about why they didn't make it into top 100, that they did all this stuff and so on and so forth. And I said, well, your application doesn't show that. And then I got to reviewing and I looked, and for example, I went out to the internet and looked up her name, and here is like 15 articles that she had written in various publications.
Wow.
They totaled about 8,000 words, and she didn't list that she wrote a thing. And I was going,
that's exactly what I'm saying.
You've got to keep track of all this stuff.
Yeah, I love education for education's sake, but it also feels good to be patted on. I don't do this for the awards, right? But it feels good. You don't do it for the gold star, but it feels good to get the gold star. It really does. And it allows you to extend your reach, which I'm guessing we'll talk about a little bit further. Is it allows you, when you do get those kind of gold stars, it allows you to make a bigger impact in the mentorship work that you're doing, and the collaboration that you're doing, in the education that you're offering. I wanted to add something, because Caleb had mentioned the exhibit halls and getting to know the vendors. I have a suggestion for Insightful Accountant. I think they should sponsor a session. One of the best couple of sessions I ever attended was a million years ago at SleaterCon. Gail Perry did a session and it was for CPE credit. And so it was during one of the breakout sessions, and it was in the exhibit hall though. So she had pre-selected 5 different apps and told them, hey, I want you to come up with a 5-minute or however long it was explanation of what you do. And I do not want it to be a sales pitch. I want it to be, what would somebody who's going to use this or think about using it for their clients or in their own firm, what would it be that they need to know? And then we went around to each of those apps, and we really got to learn about it, as opposed to, sort of, you're fighting, sort of elbowing all of the other people who want to learn the same things about the app, and you're getting the sales pitch, and you're like, yeah, but I want to know what distinguishes you from your competitors. You get to ask the hard questions. I think Insightful Accountant should do that with some of the maybe some of the sponsors of
well, we do
Talk.
those interviews that become podcasts,
which
but
is wonderful.
They're kind of after the fact. But
yeah, I think it would be really good. I think that would be a lot of fun. I think we should think about doing that.
By the way, Sandy, we're glad to have you, and I'll get to you in just a few minutes, because your category works slightly different than everyone else's, and I'll explain how that difference impacts potential award recipients. But Hayden, I want to give you the chance to kind of talk a little, and I'm going to kind of differentiate some of your scenario because I know it. When after you've thrown in your 2 bits here.
Okay. Just want to share a little bit. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I had a conflict earlier time slot, but really good to be here. Sandy Petty with Executive Financial Partners. And I came in hearing Nancy a little bit talk about education. And I am definitely a lifelong learner. And so I echo some of that. And so not to probably repeat what some of the things that may have been shared earlier that I didn't hear is that, in terms of good nuggets are, keeping track of the learning. I think that was new for me this time. So I truly had to make sure that I was tracking, and I too am a CPA, and I have to track a lot of the learnings and all that. But I think that I'm not really sure I knew before this year that some of the things that I did outside of the QB community or the QB ecosystem, that those could potentially apply. So just as you mentioned, Murph, that you had this young lady who wrote a lot of articles, she probably didn't know that she could be putting those on there as well, and that it had to be something specific to the Intuit or QuickBooks ecosystem.
Oh, and actually, that reminds me, Sandy, thank you so much for saying that, because I wanted to add certain sections of the application actually become available depending on your answers to qualifying questions, right? So for example, like we run a full tax practice as well as doing client bookkeeping and accounting. So I had access to that area of inquiry as well as the QuickBooks related questions because I answered, I answered a particular question. Yes, we do perform those kinds of things. And it didn't initially pop up for me. And so I emailed Murph and said, hey, when I clicked on this button, it didn't pop up. And he went, oh gosh, there was something broken in the back end, and he fixed it and allowed me to access it. So when he said earlier that he's available to people, he really means it. I didn't know him very well at the time, but he wrote back to me immediately.
So, Sandy, there is a difference in what we're trying to measure in the up-and-comers, and really it's a unique difference. One of the things that we evaluate in the rest of the categories is how long you've been a ProAdvisor and how many certifications you've had and things like that. But up-and-comer works in reverse. What we're trying to measure is how much an individual has accomplished in the shortest amount of time, not the longest amount of time. And so there's a proportional algorithm that basically weighs things against a certain limit of age, not age, of practice age in terms of being a ProAdvisor for so many years, which is 7 is our magical number there. And it essentially then is offsetting credits earned against those years in order to maximize the score potential. It's always been a very unique experience. So when you actually have an up-and-comer award recipient, it tells you this is the individual who, even though their ProAdvisor career has been very, very limited in terms of the, again, number of years, they've accomplished a great deal over that period of time. And sometimes that great deal is even more than some recipients who have been in the top 100 for much, much longer. Hayden,
Wow.
I'm gonna ask you to go ahead and chime in as well, because there's a couple of unique things that I want to make sure that I get across out of what I know you're going to tell us.
Okay, glad to
I
be
think
here today, and really feel honored to be with the panel and everybody else here today. And I guess what I could say right off the bat is I'm always amazed that I even make it into the top 100. I most of the time wait until the very last minute to fill out the application. I'm busy, I'm just a busy guy. And so I wait till the last minute, and then I go through it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sure I'm forgetting things, and I should have put that and I should have put this, and oh well, I'll just send it in and see what happens. And thankfully I've been blessed to have gotten in the top 100 several times now, and be in the top 10 a couple of times. And again, for me, it's just somehow a byproduct of working hard and keeping my nose to the grindstone and doing this for a long time. And you mentioned that we're from the old school. I'm one of the original ProAdvisors from 97 or whenever it started. And I've been in the business for a long time, and I'm getting the award this year for the Desktop ProAdvisor. I actually do online too. I'm not just a desktop guy, but I'm a data guy. I really like to go deep into the data. I'm an IT guy, and I was a practicing CPA for a long time. And so I got all that coming together for me. And I used to say, well, I'm not really a programmer. I'm a kind of a hacker. But then in the last year or two, I said, you know what? I guess I really am a programmer, so I guess I need to own it. And but I think that gives me a better perspective on a lot of things, including the applications that integrate with QuickBooks. Is I look at it from the perspective of what's going on under the hood. Where is the data coming from? Where is it going to? What needs to happen to make it go to the right place or not go to the right place? Where does it break? Okay, how do you fix it when it doesn't work the way it's supposed to? And all the rest of it, the continuing education and participating in the different events and everything, I've just done it and done it and done it. And so it's just kind of my thing. I just keep doing it and somehow keep being blessed to be in this award.
So I'm going to come back to you in just a minute, but we've got to do a poll because we're kind of out of sequence with polls. So Gary, would you throw open that poll about common traits?
Oh, they're not named. I don't have it named by that. Do you know which is which?
It should be the first one that you have.
Well,
That was mine.
All right, we will find out in just a second here. Here we
Oh,
go.
just launch any poll. It'll be a fun
Common
surprise.
traits,
Come
top
on.
100.
We all love surprises.
Hey, I do what Murph says.
Well, we'll be happy
All
for
right.
whatever poll you throw up there.
It should be. Is it loading yet?
Nope.
No? Yeah. Still. All right, here we go. Try again.
There we go.
Here we go.
Hey, it's the right poll.
Good job, Gary.
And folks, you can help us catch up on time by moving through this as quick as you can.
And Gary, you know what's helpful is if you want to just do a countdown for when you're going to close that poll, that'll help people get their answers in quickly. Not sure if Gary heard you there.
We're going to be closing it up in about 5 seconds.
Great.
Hurry up. 3, 2, and 1. Thank you.
All right. And so going back to kind of what everybody's talked about and Hayden's kind of unique difference, You know, Joe Woodard wrote an article which not long ago I brought back into publication with some updated information. And one of the things he said was, get to know one app and get to know it very well. Now, 15 years ago when he wrote that, that was true. But as you've heard so many of our speakers talk about, it's not one app, it's maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 apps. In Caleb's case, it's, yeah. And again, that's where he earns all these points. He gets to know every app he encounters. But you can have an app and it takes you an hour or two to work with your client, connect it, set it up, get it all working, etc. Maybe even 3 hours, okay? And if you do that 100 times in the year, well, that's 300 hours you're earning of that app that we ask you to measure, to report to us. But you can also have a single app that you might spend 400 hours over the course of a year installing and integrating for clients. Some of these very sophisticated, like manufacturing apps. And that's worth just as many points. Even though it's a single app, it's the number of hours that you're involved with. So what I want to do is talk a little about making sure everybody understands, first and foremost, that we made a change, and we made this at the behest of Intuit, and we made it as a result of the release of QuickBooks Ledger. And whereas we used to talk about people who didn't have direct client involvement because they worked in the background solely, we now have that when you're working with Ledger, and you can participate in the awards as well. And we still require certifications, and certifications have to be active. You have to have one of these three, QBO or QBO Advanced or Desktop, and all those certifications have to be since 11 of 2023. And I'm going to skip this for right now because I want to talk about the awards as such. And, you know, we have a tendency to always want to call these the top 10 because that's what we had in the beginning. We actually have more than 10 awards now. We have 3 QBO awards, the actual QBO Core Award, the QBO Advanced Award, the QBO Apps, or what we call Appology Award. We have 3 Desktop Awards, Desktop, Enterprise, and Integrated Services, or essentially the third-party apps that connect to desktop. And then we have the Educator, the Niche, the CAS Award, and the Social Award. Sometimes we call that evangelism. And we actually have 2 subcategories. Nancy mentioned one of those, tax. And tax provides a way to add additional scoring factors to either the CAS Award or the Niche Award. And payroll also is a new subcategory that provides a way to add points towards the Niche Award or the CAS Award. I published an article just this week about how payroll works in impacting your Niche and CAS scores. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time about that. But I want you to realize that these awards have always been, and I've compared it time and time again, like a dog show, in that it's not the total number of points you earn, it's the total number of points relative to one of these categories. And you're ranked in each category that you qualify for, and then there are an allowed number of recipients per category. And of course, then we have the up-and-comers and the internationals, and those processes run simultaneously, and to some extent they're integrated, but they are separate awards now. But folks, this box is the most important thing you can do to ensure you qualify yourself for the kind of practice you actually have. This is where we ask you to categorize yourself relative to the awards. If you look on the left, this is actually the list of the awards. And we actually ask you to tell us, is this a primary focus of your practice or a secondary thing you do? Or no, I don't do that at all. I'm not involved in social media whatsoever, etc. But it doesn't mean that you can only have one primary area. You can have a general practice in QBO and also a niche, for example, a payroll niche that is primary because you're working with only QBO payroll in QuickBooks Online. So you
Murph,
need
I'm
to
going to
take
interrupt
time.
you because
Yeah.
a lot of people in the chat are asking if these slides are going to be made available because they are excellent. They are super helpful.
They are
wonderful.
This will both the deck and the recording will be available, and everybody will receive links to where that is. But these are the general things we measure, and as Nancy said, be sure to count, track, and report on everything you do during the year. CPEs are great, but so are hours for things that don't generate CPEs. Find the places to report it all in your application form. We can't count if you don't provide the information. And every number you enter is points. It's just that plain and simple. It's all point driven. And so here's the big mystery. We recognize 25 in the group of QBO generalists, 5 advanced, 5 apologists, 10 educators, 10 niche practitioners, 10 CAS practitioners, 10 social media moguls, 15 desktop generalists, 5 enterprise, and 5 third-party integrated applications or services. That's what makes up the top 100. You add those up, there's 100 individuals. The highest scoring in each of these categories is the categorical winner. And then the highest scoring of all of the categorical winners becomes ProAdvisor of the Year. I can't say it any simpler than that. It's a system that's designed to measure who you are in what you do. And so, Gary, this is the third poll. Let's open it. Which one of the following areas provides the single greatest number of scoreable points within the 2025 ProAdvisor Awards? Professional stature, practice performance, training, certifications, app engagements, or none of these? Let's see if everybody gets it right. We've said it over and over.
We'll leave this open for about 10 seconds just because, just in lieu of time here.
Well, I just wanted, while people are answering that, I wanted to bring up something that you had asked us about earlier, Murph, which is how this award has impacted our ProAdvisor practices. And because I think that there are some people who are like, well, I I don't need those gold stars. Like I don't need that pat on the back. I don't need that award. And I just want to ask people to reconsider that, because it really does boost your visibility in everything that you do. It's not just in your practice. Like in my practice, we're not accepting new clients, right? So this isn't about that. Our clients already think we're amazing, right? Like they don't need to see that I got one more award. But what it does do is it helps for me to attract members to my Ask a CPA subscription community. It enhances my applications for speaking events. And because I work specifically with bookkeepers, they're familiar with the Top 100 program, right? They know what this means. Some of our members are even Top 100 awardees themselves. And I want to see every one of our members on this list. It's an opportunity to mentor and guide others. One of my favorite quotes is by Marianne Williamson. She says, "When you let your light shine, you unconsciously give others permission to do the same." And I feel like that is, for me, my most important takeaway from receiving this, the Client Accounting Services Award, is that being able to shine helps me find others and give them permission to shine and help mentor them and sort of usher in the next generation of Top 100 and Top 10.
And I just want to say, for years we only recognized a very limited number of up-and-comers. And when we expanded to include the separate list, we did so because we recognized the fact that not everybody is an individual who's been around since day one, or who accelerates as fast as, for example, Caleb did. But we have a lot of pro advisors out there who are doing a lot of work and who are early in their career. And we felt like that was an important recognition. And so that's why we did expand and create the separate top 25 up and comers. Gary, do we have results? All right. So a vast majority of people got it right, 35% app engagement. And that is the largest area of points that you can earn is from app engagement. So you need to make sure that you're learning those apps, that you're using those apps, you're recommending those apps that are in the ecosystem, and that you're engaged with them actively. That's the best way to earn credit in those categories, and those categories can propel you into a list. So I want to thank everybody for being with us today. If you've got any last minute comments, I know we're running just a few minutes over, but that's fine. Go ahead and throw those out. And while you're doing that, I'm going to point out that next month, our QB Talks is during our Future Forward event, and it's on the status of QuickBooks Desktop 2025. And so we'll be talking about that and what that means to our readers and our listeners.
Should add a question mark to the end of that.
I will also be doing at Future Forward a 30-minute session devoted exclusively on scoring your best in the awards process. And we'll have a little more in-depth discussion about some of the same characteristics that we've talked about today.
Did you have a slide on the Be Insightful premium content?
I did not.
Do not. All right. You mind shouting that out? I'm just going to launch a poll, but.
So if you'd like to receive information about our new Be Insightful premium content, which has both a free and a paid premium offering, you can check here, and we'll distribute some information about what all that involves and how you can get involved.
Very good. All right, we'll close this out in about 5 more seconds. 3, 2, and 1. All right, it's all you. Thank you all.
All
Mark,
right.
you want to close it out?
Yep. So once
you.
again, I want to thank our 4 award recipients, and we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. And we want to thank everybody that joined us today, and we'll hope to see you next month at the Future Forward event for both QB Talks and Scoring Your Best.
Thanks,
And
Mark.
a quick shout out to Alicia Katz-Pollock for the wonderful work that she's been doing with QB Talks. I've really have been enjoying it. And for those of you who are in the audience who have not had the pleasure of attending one of her QB Talks, she is giving just gems of information on every single thing that there is. She truly is the queen of QuickBooks education. And so please tune in the future for hers. She's the one who's normally hosting these, and just wanted to make sure she gets a shout out because she's doing an incredible job.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Murph.
Thanks, Murph. Thanks, Gary. Caleb, Hayden, great to see you again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.